Today, I'm going to be answering all of the biggest questions that are asked here on my channel while I'm making my favorite hot chocolate. It is both sweet and filling and warm, and it always makes these dreary, rainy days just feel, I don't know, a little bit more cozy. So grab a drink and let's get into this beautiful Q&A. Alrighty, so let's start getting into some of these questions while I'm waiting for my hot chocolate to heat up. I don't know what I'm gonna say. I have not looked these over, so hopefully this goes well. This is my first Q&A. I'm very excited. I kind of like these chit-chatty videos, no plan. But they do scare me a little bit because I like to have like a little bit of a plan because I can really talk for a really long time. So let's hope that this doesn't go on forever because that's not what you came here for. And also, if you would like to be involved in Q&As or picking my podcast episodes on the community tab here on YouTube, that's where I do all of that. I'm posting polls like almost every week and having question boxes every couple of weeks, and I'm hoping to do more of these Q&As. So if you have questions, you can actually just comment them below on this video, and then I will answer them in the next Q&A, which I'm thinking maybe of doing monthly. I don't know. We'll see how this one goes. So the first question comes from Jess, and she says, how do you feel like you can turn off when being a stay-at-home mom? I remember when I worked full-time away from my 2- and 4-year-old, I'd come home refreshed and bubbly and excited that they were happy to see me. But now that we're home full-time together, I feel like I'm constantly having to be this subdued version of myself in order for everyone to stay calm and taken care of. My now 3-year-old is especially challenging, very reactive and violent at times. I'm forcing all of us to stay emotionally regulated, and it leaves me feeling like I can't relax and be myself. I'm always on, you know? Oh, do I know? Yes. Being a mother, especially staying at home, we are on 24/7. And by no means, if you're a working mama, I do not think that your way is easier or my way is easier or any of the above. I think that everybody, for a different reason, struggles, you know? But being a stay-at-home mom, you truly are on 24/7 unless somebody comes and watches your kids. And even for me, like when my husband's home, I'm still on. I'm still mom. And what she's saying about feeling like she has to stay emotionally regulated for everybody, that is very much a motherly feeling. And for me, when I felt out of touch with how to emotionally regulate myself, how to emotionally regulate my kids, I felt very overwhelmed, burned out, and tired. Now, I want you to know that even on days like today, actually, I this morning had a really rough morning. And it's always, I said this in my podcast episode, it's always really hard for me to shoot videos on those days because I'm not feeling great about myself, you know? I'm not feeling great about how I handled things or how I did things, but I always show up reminding myself that I am imperfect, I am a human, I am a mom too, I have emotions and feelings, and as much as I'm teaching this stuff and I can know it logically, doesn't always mean that it's going to translate in my everyday life all the time perfectly or well. And I think that that is something that moms need more awareness around, is that, you know, we are the emotional regulators, right? That is actually how we were biologically made. That's why kids under the age of 7 require 100% co-regulation. And what's interesting for me is at the beginning, when I had my first daughter, I knew nothing about emotional regulation. I didn't know about emotional regulation until my youngest had turned 1. But I see a drastic difference between my first and second. And although I only started emotionally regulating my second better, not even well, but better than I had with my first, by the time she was like 1.5 years, I still see a drastic difference. Because here's how I see emotional regulation. It is our nervous system that is being mirrored through our children. I actually learned about this on the Village the Village podcast, I think it's called. I did understand the concept of children expressing our inner world, but hearing this term mirroring made so much sense to me. And I wanted to blame my kids. Trust me, I did. It would be easier for me if I blamed my kids for my inner world, what I was feeling, what was going on for me, why I wasn't happy. But the truth is they can only do as well as I am doing. They can't do any better than that because they are relying on me for emotional regulation. And so when I'm burned out and I'm tired and I'm exhausted, yeah, they're not going to do well either. And so I think we can go into this fix it mode, right? Fix the kids, emotionally regulate them. But if we don't start with ourselves, if we don't build up our ability to be regulated most of the time, then our children are not going to get better. I have an example, but I got to check this hot chocolate. Hang on. So I was sharing a little bit about emotional regulation and kind of my journey with it. I can't remember exactly where I was, but I think that when we look at emotional regulation, we as moms need to look inward first. We need to learn how to regulate ourselves, find true calm. When we look at the polyvagal theory, we want to be in that parasympathetic state. And in order to get there, we need to exercise the nervous system. And this can't be done in a heightened state. And so this was where, without even knowing it, going to the chiropractor started me on this journey. It was the first time in my life that I knew that my body feeling the way it had been feeling was not normal. But then when I started doing somatics, it'll be about a year ago now, it was the first time in my life I experienced calm, and talk about this in my rage calming tools, where we have to practice these things off the mat. We cannot practice them when we are in the middle of something. It's just not going to work. And so my best advice, which this is probably not what she was looking for, but when we look at this emotional regulation piece, it's let me focus on myself. Let me go inward. Let me regulate myself, learn how to get myself into a calm state, because that is just going to pour out into my kiddos. Her kiddos are little. Our kiddos are about the same age. Her oldest would be 5, I think. And so under the age of 7, kids are still needing 100% co-regulation. That's a lot on the brain. And when we think back to our ancestors, it is very recent. I was reading in the book Hunt, Gather, Parent, very, very recent, that parents or mothers in specific were expected to parent completely isolated. We were never intended for that. We had our parents and our husband's parents, and then our aunts and uncles and, sisters, brothers, cousins, close friends, neighbors who were helping us raise this child. And not only are we raising children completely isolated, but we also are expected to, what was I going to say there? Guys, this is why I don't do stuff off the cuff. No. What was I saying? Well, anyway, we weren't intended to mother alone and do this alone and never have a break, essentially. We were supposed to have our own passions. We were supposed to have our own skills that we offered, and not just being mom 24/7. So it's like, how do we do that today? How does that translate today? And my first thought when she was like, how do you turn off? My first thought is obviously the nervous system. I think it's this feeling of like, I'm stuck. Let's dig deeper. What's actually going on there? Am I stuck? Am I feeling trapped? That was very much words that I used. Am I feeling isolated? Do I feel like I have no community? Do I feel like I need help and I'm not getting it? Am I feel like I'm not being heard or seen? What is going on for me? What is the feeling there? And then what I found was doing things like going to the library. I haven't done this in a while. I need to do it again. But when I was in a really bad spot, just going to the library made me feel like I could turn off because the kids were occupied, paying attention to story time, and I could just kind of sit there and be. My kids and her kids would be old enough at this age to be able to go to a park and play without needing to be 100% played with, and kind of helped, I guess. And so she could get a little time just to sit. And I feel like it's about really curating and being really intentional about time for yourself. How can you do that? Is it hiring a mother's helper, which I don't ever like saying like, oh, like we should hire somebody, because most of us can't afford that. I know myself, that was the advice given and I couldn't afford that. But it could be really helpful if you can afford it to get somebody to come in like 2 days a week and watch the kids for a couple hours. Maybe it's having your husband, put the kids to sleep every night. It's something that we incorporated so I could have time to myself. And the other thing is having a passion that is yours. Find something that you really enjoy. It could be knitting, crocheting. That was my thing for like ever. I still love it, but I should get back into it. I miss it. But yeah, it was my thing. I would do it every night. Maybe it's reading, getting lost in a book. Maybe it's something like YouTube, doing a business, having a small side business, something that you are passionate about that you can pour into that isn't your kids. Because I think that we can just kind of get stuck there and feel like we're trapped and there's no way out. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. Pretty loaded. So the next question is, hi, I have a question about dealing with overwhelm. I have an almost 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. They know nothing about being patient. No, they don't. I find I get so flustered when they need me, when they're fussing, crying, impatient. And while I'm trying to do something like make them breakfast, for example, I feel like that's where I can't appease their needs instantly because I'm in the middle of something important, is when I get the most flustered. Any tips for me? Whew, I have a lot of tips. Let me take a sip here. So I think that it's super common for moms to feel overwhelmed in those moments of tasks. Like, I know for the longest time I struggled with doing laundry because my youngest hated it. She hated when I would turn on the dryer. It was a whole thing. And I found myself avoiding doing the laundry. Sometimes I still do out of habit because I didn't want to deal with the crying and the fussing that came along with it. And especially when it came to dinner, and she's talking about breakfast here, it was exhausting. My mentor called it the witching hour. It doesn't matter how old kids are, there's a witching hour. And for me, that witching hour was between, 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock. And my kids just really struggled. And so what I found myself doing was just being angry and frustrated and tense towards that time of the day. And so it was this constant cycle of 4, 5, 6 o'clock. I would just be, what are you doing? Why are you not? So what I ended up doing was completely meal prepping, which changed everything. So per her example, for breakfast, start prepping your breakfasts. What I do is I do 1 week where I prep all my breakfast. So I just have to cook breakfast for like 1 week straight. And then for an entire month, I have breakfast. So I don't have to think about it for a month. The other thing I've done in the past is I've done just on the weekends, I do 2 different breakfasts, like one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And then I make a bunch of extra and then we have it for the rest of the week. So just finding ways to make these moments easier, but for the specific, okay, I can't help the fact that I, have something hot on the stove. I'm making myself a drink and my kids are screaming and fussing and I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. What do I do? And my first thing is always going to be asking, are my kids safe? Is my child hurt? Because if they're hurt instantly, I know they're going to need me. And I have this extra capacity that I can get into that I can help them, if I'm really flustered and then I notice that they're actually hurt or in trouble. My youngest loves to hang off things and then she'll get herself stuck. And then that's a moment I have to stop, drop everything and run over to her, but it's what what is going on with the child in that moment? And are they actually hurt or going to get hurt by doing whatever they're doing? If the answer is no, let's calm you down first. Now, you're talking about being in the kitchen. My go-to calming tool when I'm in the kitchen, run my hands under cold water. It's like an instant for me, like it just kind of breaks everything up. I also have my sliding glass door like right here. So sometimes I'll just open it. It's really cold right now. So just open it and like get some really cold air to kind of like shock me and shock my body a little bit. This is where my rage calming tools would come in. You can look through all of those and, know what tools would work, but it's really about anchoring and grounding yourself before moving on to everything else, because the overwhelm is, I don't know what to do. I have something that could be burning on the stove and I have a screaming child and they both feel equally as important. And the thing is the child in that moment, as long as they're okay, and it's not like you're going to leave them screaming there for a long time, and typically I'll give you an example of how I would do this. So I'm cooking on the stove here and I'm making something and we're getting close to being done and I don't want it to burn. So my little one is screaming at my leg. And what I'll do is I'll cook this and then I can't get down right now, but I'll get down on their level and I'll start conversing with them, or sometimes I'll just hug them. It is often that I could pick them up and I could hold them while I'm doing this if it made sense. If it wasn't bacon grease that's popping all over. But it's like, can I just bring them into this and give them that calm? And if I don't have the calm in me, if I'm feeling flustered, I need to calm myself first before, I'm tending to this. And typically, once you get, really good at it, and once you've started doing this in the moments when you're already calm, you're practicing this, it's easier to access it when you're in a moment of overwhelm. And so you'll be able to access that stressed out feeling and say, okay, here's my tool. Maybe it's just doing arm swings, I don't want to hit everything here, but kind of just doing these and doing it for 5 seconds. And then you can get down and you can pick up your baby and start, helping them to calm down, because they're only going to get as stressed out as you are, which goes back to what I was answering in the very first question, which is, the whole, our child is mirroring us. And I think that we also could ask the question here, what am I avoiding? Why are my kids getting so upset? For so long, my kids would get upset anytime I'd work out. I was avoiding working out. I didn't want to work out. I felt like the house had 100 other things to do. And so it's like, what am I avoiding in this moment? And that's a really good question to ask. So yeah, I hope that helps and gives you a little bit of clarity on how to deal with things when you are feeling flustered. But I think that we have to remember here and really go through logically, is my child safe? Are they okay? And when I say, are they just crying? Are they just crying? Crying isn't going to hurt them, as my daughter's cardiologist has reassured me 1,000 times. She's going to be fine if she cries for a few minutes. It's fine. I don't want my kids to cry. I don't. I'm going to tell you that right now. It hurts me. It hurts inside. It literally hurts my heart. But I cannot regulate them if I'm not regulated. So find a way to calm yourself down and then tend to your kiddo. So my last question, because this is getting way longer than I thought, is going to be, what helps you balance mom life with everything else you need to get done, as well as taking time to care for yourself? Finding this balance, man, this is hard. This has been a journey that I think I've been on for the last year, as really figuring this out. Because for myself, I also add work in there. So it's like, how am I working, balancing mom life, tending to myself? And my biggest tip of advice here is to find small ways to do this while you are being mom. And I just recorded a podcast episode actually today about toddlers and the chaos of toddlerhood and just some things that we can do as moms. And one of the things I shared at the very bottom was, we need to sit on the floor in close proximity to our littles, because our littles are meant to be close to us. They're meant to want to be here right inside of our bubble. But if we can get down on their level, if we can just be in their space, maybe bring down a new toy they haven't played with in a while, this will really encourage them to want to play while also we're doing our own thing. One of my favorite books that I've ever read is Only Love Today by Rachel Macy Stafford. They are really, really short. Each essay, I guess, is very, very short. And so I love this as like a quick little read, like, so you feel accomplished. Because I know myself, like when I sit on the floor, and I usually journal. Sometimes I will read, it just kind of depends on the day. But if I'm, say, like reading my Bible, I am not going to make a goal that I'm going to read like the whole book of John today. Instead, it's going to be like, can I start by reading like 3 verses? Can I start by reading 5 verses? And then the next day, can I read just 1 chapter? Can I get through 1 chapter? And so being realistic about what you can do, but just having these micro moments. I've shared my micro moments in the past and how much those have helped me, but really taking a moment, like if you made yourself a cup of tea, it's like, let me make myself a cup of tea. My kids are screaming, crying, all the chaos is going on, but I can be right here in my moment and just be like, yep, this moment is for me. Here's the coffee. There's the bubbles on the top. Okay, the milk is kind of doing this weird thing on top, making that look like that. Let me smell it. Like bringing all the senses. Oh, I'm hearing the screaming, acknowledging it. I'm hearing the screaming. But really allowing yourself to have these little moments. I feel like there has to also be a level of communication with those around you. We have lost that community. Very much what I was sharing in the first question here, is like, we've lost the community that we were meant and intended to have. And so when we don't have that, it's like, how do I get everything done? How do I balance it all? And, when we weren't intended to live this way. And so getting really good about communicating. This is why I love nonviolent communication, because I can share with my husband saying, hey, listen, I'm feeling really overwhelmed in this season right now. This isn't a forever thing, but I just need some time at night for myself. Okay, awesome. We're gonna do that. We're gonna figure out a way to get, what you are needing, which maybe it's like, I'm needing, if I'm overwhelmed, a lot of times I'm just needing space. So how can I get some space to be with myself, to reconnect with myself? And I think acknowledging the moments that we do have for ourselves and evaluating, like for me, a habit that I got into, really, this is recently, honestly. My kids in the morning like to watch a show. Well, they would watch one show, and then I have 2 kids, and so they each want to pick a show. So it's like, okay, well, I'll let them watch 2 shows. Well, I'm hungry in the middle of show number 1, and breakfast is ready because I prepped it. So I'll just sit down and I'll eat. Well, instead of reading my Bible or doing something that would fuel me and fill me, I'm scrolling on YouTube usually because I don't have any other social media. And it's like, I found myself getting into this really bad cycle and habit. And so it's like, can I look at my life and can I see the areas that maybe I could fill with a little bit of me time? And going back to that question, actually the second question that I was answering about, like, what are you avoiding? Why are my kiddos constantly needing my love and attention? What is going on for them? Why are they constantly needing me and seeking me out? What are they not getting? Sorry, my dog hit the camera and the whole thing shook, and I don't know where this is at. But anyway, I think just really evaluating what our kiddos are needing, what we're needing, and how we can, combine the two to allow ourselves to have that time for ourselves. Because I feel like more what she's saying in this question is like, she's saying, how do you get it done? Now that I'm reading this the second time, I'm having another thought come up. Okay, you guys, hang tight with me. We're gonna go here. So she says, what helps you to balance mom life with everything else you need to get done, as well as taking time to care for yourself? Okay, there needs to be here and an acceptance, maybe, or maybe an acknowledgement that, like, maybe permission. Let's go with the word permission. There needs to be permission that time for yourself is incredibly valuable. It's incredibly important. For myself, I struggled with this. I thought that getting the dishes done, having my house perfectly cleaned was the goal. And really what the goal is a regulated mama who is able to emotionally be there and withstand the storms of my kiddos. Be able to be just vibrant. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's what I'm going with. So I'm sitting here, I could have just cut to the chase. But this is coming up big for me. There needs to be permission that it is important, if not more important, to take time for yourself. Now, be careful here. I am not saying, and I always need to, like, make sure I'm real and honest with this. This does not mean I'm saying I'm giving you permission to go get your hair done, go get your nails done, get a massage done, do all this stuff for yourself that costs money and it takes a lot of time. No, I'm talking about, like, small moments. And this is where communication, nonviolent communication, comes in, where we can share with the people around us what is going on in our inner world, what we are needing, and then we can come up with a plan collaboratively on how we can get that met. And a lot of times self-care looks like just being by ourselves, being able to have the autonomy to do what we want, go where we want. Maybe it's even just like, I just need to go to the grocery store and then I'm gonna go get a coffee. I don't know. You know, like, for me, doing something like that can just be so great because I can turn off at that moment, you know. Just back to the first question that was asked, you know, how do I turn off? These are ways that I've found to turn off and to be there, but really to acknowledge that I am important. My needs are important. I may be a mama and may feel like my kids' demands are important, and they are. But if I am not regulated, if I am just feeling all over the place and tired and exhausted, burned out, overwhelmed, worn out, stressed, all of the things, I'm not going to be the best mama for my kids. So I need to prioritize that and see that it is really a selfless thing to pour into ourselves. And listening to this right now is one of those things, you know? So yeah. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this Q&A. It was a bit all over the place, and hopefully you gained something from it. But if you have any questions, I'm planning on doing these once a month, hopefully, maybe. So if you have questions, make sure that you comment them below, because I think this is a fun way to get things answered and kind of pick my brain and to see where you guys are at. And yeah, I love all of it. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure that you give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to continue receiving more content like this. So alrighty guys, we will see you in the next video, and happy parenting.